A pale dawn mist clung to the coastal hills of Etruria, softening the lines of farmsteads, vineyards, and the distant shimmer of the Tyrrhenian Sea. Yet beneath the tranquil haze, the ground seemed to tremble with tidings of war, for the Gauls of the north were on the move again, driving cattle before them and the memory of Rome's ancient terror before that. From the Janiculum Hill, augurs had watched ominous flights of crows wheel above the city, and old veterans whispered of the sack 2 centuries earlier when a Gallic war band had stormed through unguarded gates. Now, in the year we would later number 225 BC, rumor galloped faster than any courier. Tribes whose names tasted of smoke and iron, Insubres, Boii, Taurishi, and those wild mercenaries called the Gauls, were pouring across the Apennines, hungry for plunder, drunk on prophecy, and certain the Tiber itself would run red. The Gauls marched at the fore, warriors who fought naked save for bright bronze torques, chalk and woad spirals twisting across muscle and scar. To Roman ears, their kings bore fearsome titles, Concolitanus, Aneroestes, and they vowed to purchase glory or the grave with equal cheer. Behind them rolled great ox-drawn wagons piled with women, children, and crude treasures wrested from alpine passes. Every clang of a blade on shield was a promise that the peninsula would feel northern thunder once more. Why had they come? High in their forest homelands, the Insubres had tasted Roman ambition too often. The founding of the Latin colony at Sena Gallica, the conquest of Picenum, the flexing of roads and legions toward the Po, all of it spelled chains for Celtic chieftains. So they hired the Gauls, fierce freelancers of the Rhone, to spearhead a grand coalition. Gold and prospects of fame lured thousands. Hate supplied the rest. The Senate received the tidings with the chill sobriety of men who had studied catastrophe. An emergency levy rang across the Italian countryside. Allies filled draft rolls. Blacksmiths heaped pila in smoking forges. Oxen strained, bringing grain to camp markets. At the rostra, the people acclaimed 2 consuls for the year: Lucius Aemilius Papus, seasoned by campaigns in Liguria, and Gaius Attilius Regulus, a hard-fisted veteran currently governing Sardinia. Rome placed her fate in their paired hands. Papus marched first, steering 4 legions north through the vine-draped valleys of Etruria. Regulus gathered another army on the island, then ordered every trireme that could carry a cohort to embark. His plan was to strike the Gallic flank by sea, disembarking near Pisae. Between the 2 consular columns lay the sinew of Latin resolve, yet also a fateful gap that the Gauls meant to exploit. Summer's heat shimmered when the invaders burst from the shaded Apennine passes and spilled down upon the fields of Arretium. Local militia, stiff with inexperience, took position near Fiesulae and were butchered within an hour, their defeat echoing the humiliations of old. Papus arrived in time to save the survivors, his skirmishers harrying the Gauls' foragers, but the Celtic convoy swung west, seeking escape between the mountains and the sea. Each mile they marched southward edged them closer to the tall walls of Rome, or so they believed. While Papus shadowed the enemy's rear, Regulus's sails bellied in a salt wind. Ships slid into the mouth of the Arnus, flashing oars like insect wings. Legionaries splashed ashore, shields above their heads against spray and sun, then trudged inland, singing verses of triumph learned from their fathers. Regulus pushed hard, linking maniple to maniple, until dust rose behind him like a banner. Messengers galloped eastward, to warn Papists that the jaws of fate were closing around Telamon. Telamon itself was no mighty citadel, merely a bluff of tawny earth where the coastal road pinched between headland and marsh. But whoever held its summit could block an army's passage, and from its crown, a watcher might see both the glittering sea and the hazy line of interior hills. There, on the evening before battle, Regulus's scouts spied Gallic wagons creaking below, oxen lowing, plunder shining through wicker lattices. Somewhere behind that roving city, Pappus was tearing up the road in a forced night march, dust cloud lit by pine resin torches. The Gauls realized too late they were squeezed between hammer and anvil. Their war councils ended with raw-throated shouts, Celtic horns keening under the moon. Anaroestes urged a breakout before dawn, but Concolitanus, his blood hottest, counseled defiance. Telamon, he swore, would witness Roman defeat so absolute that the capital's very geese would flee. Gauls sharpened javelins, smeared lime through their hair, and joked that neither mail nor conscience would burden them come sunrise. In the Roman camps, prayers drifted skyward with campfires. Regulus, steel-eyed beneath a veteran's scars, inspected pickets by lantern glow, reminding each optio that the fate of the Republic might hinge on dawn's first trumpet. Across the hills, Pappus marched on, calves afire, robes dark with sweat, but his thoughts clear. Trap the Gauls, crush them between two locked shields, and end forever the nightmare of northern raids. First light seeped like spilled honey over the ridge. Regulus mounted, drove his cavalry up the slope, and burst through knotted scrub onto the crest. Below, startled Gaul scouts wheeled and spurred back to their host. Almost instantly, a tide of Celtic horse and fleet-footed Gauls shower throwers surged uphill. Spears flashed, hooves bit stone, and for a breathless quarter hour, Telamon's summit became a maelstrom of hacking blades and rearing chargers. Regulus fought at the fore, plume torn away, visor dented by a Gallic sword pommel. He felled two opponents, then toppled beneath a plunge of bronze. His companions hauled him clear, but the consul's life poured across the trampled grass. His last command, a whispered plea to hold the height. They obeyed. Roman cavalry, in grim silence, reformed line, jammed knees to flank, and refused to yield so much as a foot. By mid-morning, Papus's vanguard arrived, shields shimmering like a second sunrise. Trumpets blared from behind the Gauls, who turned to find legion after legion marching upon their rear, standards dipping and rising like crimson oars upon a living sea. The invaders found themselves encircled, Roman infantry facing inward from both north and south, cavalry cloaking the heights, auxiliaries skirmishing at the flanks. Concolitanus roared for his warriors to form a double front. The carts chained into a barricade to protect non-combatants. Thus, the plain of Telamon became a ring of iron with desperation for its hub. Picture the field. To the north, the battered cavalry of Regulus, now commanded by the legate Marcus Geminus, held the ridge, pennants snapping in salt air. To the south, Papus aligned his legions in triplex aces, the classic triple line of the manipular system, each cohort maneuvering with lethal discipline. Between them, hemmed in like a boar at bay, the Celtic host arranged itself. Naked Gauls in the van of both fronts, tattooed bodies shining with oil, great oval shields painted with beasts and storms. Behind them, the boii and insubres set spears, while matrons screamed curses or prayers from the wagon ramparts. Pappus raised a hand. Pila arced skyward in dark swarms. The first volley fell among the Gauls like iron hail. Some caught shafts on their shields, but many were struck full and went down, thrashing in disbelief. Those who remained alive answered with a feral charge, sprinting across the stubbled wheat, brandishing long swords, voices braiding into a single monstrous howl. Roman first ranks locked shields, braced behind interlaced scuta, their centurions pacing the line, faces calm as marble. The Gauls slammed home, wood splintered, bronze rang like bells, sweat and blood misted into the rising heat. Yet discipline held. At the centurions' whistles, the foremost rank stepped back, letting the second rank thrust forward, a living machine of cut and replace, grind and endure. On the north front, Marcus Geminus ordered his infantry to press from the slope, in near unison with Pappus's southerly push. Thus the Gauls fought both directions at once, anvil striking anvil, each crash of blades against Roman shields echoed by another behind them. Their heavy weapons were deadly in single combat, but the Romans fought as organs of a single body, every limb obeying a common pulse. Concolitanus, spattered and roaring, rallied a wedge of Gauls, hacking clean through a maniple's standard-bearer, seizing the eagle and hurling it into the dirt. Legionaries screamed outrage, surged, and buried the king beneath a forest of thrusting blades. Across the melee, Aneroestes saw hope gutter and fled the ring, disappearing into the chaos with a handful of retainers. Polybius later wrote that he took his own life rather than face Roman chains. Now, Pappus unleashed his cavalry. Equites trotted wide, then galloped into the Gallic flanks, their spears punching the exhausted shields of Boii infantry. The Celtic horses, already savaged in the dawn clash, buckled. Dust rose so thick that men fought by feel alone, swords hacking shadows in the brown haze. When the wind shifted, it revealed Gauls staggering back toward the wagon wall, while Roman ranks advanced, metronome steady, Pila poised for the final throw. Women screamed from atop the carts, flinging pots and torches in futile rage. One plume of flame caught a wagon canvas. Smoke curled skyward. Cattle bawled, trampling children. Yet the Roman advance did not pause. They closed upon the wagon lager, levered apart chains, and poured through like floodwater. Inside that furnace, the last wild Gauls fought back to back. But valor could not reverse math. Two Roman armies, nearly 80,000 strong, pressed in perpetual rotation against fewer than half that number. By afternoon, the fight was over, save for the butchery. 40,000 Gauls lay dead or dying. 10,000 more would shuffle south in fetters, trophies of a Senate eager for spectacle. Roman losses were severe. Pappus wept to see whole maniples halved, but the Republic still stood, and the terror of northern invasion had been exorcised. As for Regulus, his corpse was borne on a bier of shields, saluted by both armies. In death, the senators said, he had purchased the summit that delivered victory. The road back to Rome became a living fresco of triumph. Captured standards dangled upside down from wagons. Pairs of Celtic chieftains trudged in iron. Their tattooed shoulders bowed beneath the stare of jeering crowds. Pappus entered the city amid thunderous acclaim. Regulus's sons riding behind the triumphal car, holding aloft the blood-crusted sword their father had wielded at Telamon's peak. Spoils filled treasury coffers, funding new colonies at Placentia and Cremona, forging the strands of road that would one day be called the Via Aemilia. Within a decade, legions would march permanently into the Po Valley, and the Gauls' ancestral heartland would become simply another province of an empire in the making. On that day, though, Romans spoke less of policy than of deliverance. The capital's geese remained unruffled. The city's gods had answered prayers. Historians later judged Telamon a hinge upon which swung the destiny of two peoples. For the Celts, it marked the last time independent Transalpine kings threatened Italy in force. For Rome, it signaled that the legions, if properly led and coordinated, could annihilate coalitions once deemed unstoppable. The psychological weight of that discovery would echo from Cannae to Zama, from the Rubicon to distant Britain. Yet Telamon's fields keep their own counsel. Stand there today on the scrubby heights, and you'll hear only cicadas rasping under a Mediterranean sun. See only orderly rows of cypress where hilltop graves once smoldered. But bend, scoop a fist of soil, and fine gray flecks of bone still mingle with quartz and clay. These are the quiet remains of a morning when Rome bled but did not break, and of a Celtic fury that found at last the stone wall of Latin destiny. In the hush of twilight, a breeze prowls the ridge, combing the grass where Regulus fell. It carries no trumpets now, only the faint salt taste of the sea, and, perhaps, the whisper of a lesson. Courage without discipline burns bright and dies, but discipline stoked by courage can kindle empires. As shadows lengthen across Telamon, one may almost glimpse ghostly maniples wheeling in triple line, shields overlapping in eternal vigilance, guarding not a patch of earth, but an idea that outlived every man who fought that day. Thus ended the Battle of Telamon, an hour of roaring chaos, a season of triumph, a milestone on Rome's relentless road from Hilltown Republic to mistress of the Mediterranean. When chroniclers set down their stylus, they agreed on little save this. On that summer morning, the Gauls fought like lions, but the Romans fought like a pride bound by law, oath, and the unspoken certainty that their story had only just begun.